Would have been nice if the Lord of Light would have made the cinematography a little bit brighter. Grossi Posse, Game of Thrones Nation. Welcome to an episode of Game of Toms. And we are going to be breaking down Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 3, The Battle of Winterfell. And a battle it most certainly was. One that promised lots of death and destruction. And there was a bit of death, lots of destruction, and a whole lot of darkness. Now, there's a lot to break down with this episode, and I can already tell, without even going online, that this is going to be a divisive episode. It had some really awesome moments. I think at times the cinematography was beautiful, and then at times I couldn't tell what was going on because it was so chaotic. Now, some of that might be intentional, and that kind of like the Battle of the Bastards is trying to show the chaos of war, right, and the franticness. But on sometimes I was just looking up and I was like, I can't even tell what's happening. It's just bodies smashing into one another. But to start everything off, the entirety of the episode, right? Sam is getting ready to fight. He's not going down into the crypts. There's all this tension that is being built amongst all these different characters. There's ones that are in the crypts. There's ones that are on the wall. Ones that are on the front line. And then Melisandre, the Red Woman, comes on riding up on her horse and is like, hey, yo, you don't need to know where I've been. I'm going to just light all these blades on fire. And the Dothraki are like, hell yeah, let's go. Because why not put the Dothraki in front and make them charge first? But whatever. And they do that. And I thought that was an awesome shot when you saw all the Dothraki kind of go march and charge right towards the Army of the Dead, and you could not see anything until they were literally right there, and one by one you saw all of the flames go out. I thought that was a completely awesome shot and was very reminiscent of almost like a horror movie, and that seemed to be a theme throughout this episode as we jump from place to place to place, like Arya hiding in the halls, and just like the horror aspect of this horde of the Army of the Dead just constantly coming over and over and over from our characters. So there was that. Then you also have the storm coming in, because you could have thought, hey, listen, we got two dragons, like they can knock out this Army of the Death, no problem, right? Just blow your fire and just call it a day. But they didn't. They had to make it a little bit more interesting because the White Walkers literally bring the storm, and bring the storm they most certainly did, which again also led to some difficulty kind of just trying to figure out what was going on the screen. But again, I feel like some of that's intentional because again, like it's storm, the visibility is supposed to be low. But I think that almost overstayed its welcome because there was times, like I said, that I had no idea what the hell was going on in the trenches. Ed died pretty early, saving Sam, R.I.P., then came back to life briefly. Also, you had Bran, who basically was just like, yo, I'm gonna bounce, and leave the entirety of the episode. And the one shot that I think I love the most is when you see the ravens flying through the battle, and then they see the Night King, and his eyes are glowing blue, and he's reaching his hand out. I thought that was a really, really awesome shot. So like I said, sometimes the cinematography was beautiful. Like, for example, when the dragons were fighting one another, in the sky, and you saw the moon and everything. Those were all really awesome shots. Also, I don't know what happened to Dany's other dragon. Not Viserion, Rhaegal. I don't know if it's dead. I think it might be dead. We never really got clarification. It kind of just skidded into the ground. I'm assuming that it's dead. And if that's the case, R.I.P. We saw Ghost for a hot second, and then he never did anything in battle. So I don't know what's going on with that. In addition, we also saw at one point when when Melisandre lights all the trenches on fire, it was basically like a reshot of Infinity War, like when all the monsters are trying to get into Wakanda and they just start killing themselves to break through the force field. That was very reminiscent of that, and they also got some World War Z elements in that they start going on top of the wall. We saw the Hound start getting super duper afraid of fire, and that these characters were afraid for their lives, and because this was death staring them in the face. And you saw that for Arya. It was very different seeing her as a scared character, because she even said in the last episode, I'm excited to see what this face looks like, this face of death. And so you then get all this chaos is happening, and that's literally the theme of the episode. At one point, Dany sees the Night King. She's riding on Drogon. She says, Dracarys, and I'm like, yes, here we go. and nothing happens to the Night King. Never really explains why, but I guess just because he's the Night King, and so that doesn't work out the way he wanted to. I really thought Drogon was going to die when he was getting stabbed over and over and over again, and I was like, oh no, this is really, really bad. And so that was I was very happy to see him still alive, because it seems that she only has one dragon left. In addition, there were some notable deaths, right? We have Lady Mormont going off like a boss in that she was stabbing a giant in the eye. You also had Beric going almost like Hodor and blocking and saving Arya. And Melisandre said, even in the beginning, right, saying that you're going to kill all these different color-eyed people. And she even said blue eyes and said, you know, kind of a call back to season 1 and talking about, like, what do we say to the god of death? Not today. Meaning that Arya was the chosen one who was supposed to kill the Night King. And after Melisandre, like, they did that, you know, she has served no more purpose. And she was like, all right, I'm out. And she turned to an old lady and poofed. A lot of like Infinity War things, a lot of dusting and a lot of battle scenes that are just like Infinity War. But in addition to that, we also saw Theon go out like a boss. I that was one of my favorite scenes, in that you had Theon, who was fighting and protecting Bran, who, I'm sorry, literally did nothing the whole episode. He was just like, and like Theon, everyone's like dying around him, and he's... And so at the very end, it was nice for like that entire redemption arc for Theon of like, you're a good man, thank you. And Theon's like, let's go out swinging, and literally just charges at the Night King, and he perishes and he dies. But he goes out pretty damn well. And then when you think all is lost and that Jon is being held down by Blue Eyes White Dragon, and you know, fire is about to engulf him, which I thought if he's Targaryen, maybe he wouldn't burn. That's what I was thinking about that. So while that's going on, you have Jaime and Brienne fighting, you have Tormund fighting, and I was like, oh god, please don't die. And then you had, of course, Jorah saving Dany, and Jorah was still trying to be like, maybe she'll love me now, and she's like, no, literally last person on earth, I still won't. And so all that is going on. You see like a burst of wind go across the White Walker's head, and you see Arya come out of nowhere, go to stab him, gets caught, drops it, and then shanks him, killing the Night King, killing the entire army of the dead. And now I mentioned this last week, and if they were actually going to go with this, I would have been a little bit disappointed. And they did. It just seemed like very cliche, that whole, like, because it's like every like vampire movie or monster movie or werewolf movie, anything of just like, oh, just kill the alpha or kill the originator of it all, and they all fall, they all die. I think it's a little bit cliche for Game of Thrones, but you know, I don't know if George R. R. Martin told them, like, hey, this is how they're all going to die in the books, because, again, those books are never going to get finished. So I was kind of meh about that, but this episode did create a lot of tension, a lot of desperation, and by the end of it, you had Ed, you had Lady Mormont, you had Jorah, and you had Theon dying, and I thought a lot less characters than I thought died. I thought a lot more were going to be perishing. Obviously, we have 3 more episodes left, and it seems by the previews that it's going to be all about Cersei, because they said, all right, we won the Great War, now we just have to go win the last war. And there was a couple scenes that stood out to me about potentially where this is going. So that tension that's been building between Daenerys and Tyrion, in that Tyrion was in the crypts and was with Sansa, and Sansa flat out said like it wouldn't work between us, and he's like, oh, why? And she says flat out, it's Daenerys, like it's the Dragon Queen, like that's why it wouldn't work. And Missandei's like, oh well, if it wasn't for the Dragon Queen, we would all be dead, which she's technically right. And you see Tyrion like giving her a dirty look. So I don't know if that's like foreshadowing something or trying to set something up, but you know, that there's that. And so I think like after this entire episode, it's more of just like picking up the pieces. I feel like next week, I don't want to say filler episode, but I feel like next week is going to be like them preparing to march down to King's Landing, and things are obviously going to move very quickly with only 3 episodes left. So overall, I'm a bit torn on this episode. Like, some of the action was awesome. I feel like it didn't really live up to the hype of the amount of like deaths that were going to occur, considering, I mean, this is going to sound bad, like, no major characters die. Like, Theon, I mentioned last week, like, his arc was done. Jorah really had nothing else to do. Lady Mormont was a cool character, but she's a minor character, and so was Ed. Like, and that's it. That's all that died, besides, like, you know, thousands of other people, but no one that we knew, so we didn't care. So I think that on one hand, it didn't live up to it. Again, some of the cinematography was absolutely beautiful. We also lost a dragon, too. I can't forget about the dragon. And of course, the Night King. But I feel like that was the biggest threat in the show. And, like, it's over now. Like, I feel like the fight with Cersei is so secondary now, and it's going to feel so minor. I don't know. Obviously, like, they lost a bunch of their army, but I feel like it's just going to pale in comparison to what we saw tonight. So, overall, I would give, like, the episode, like, a 9. I thought I was ready to give it a 10, but, like, some of the cliche writing and some of the action sequences were way too dark, was way too chaotic, and I understand if that was what they were going for, but it didn't really translate well for the viewer, at least for me personally. And so, like, I still was a solid episode. I did not see Arya killing the Night King coming, not even in the slightest. And I don't know how to feel about that, right? Like, Jon really never got his one-on-one with the Night King after that. Yeah, I like all that build up. It was kind of just like, oh no, here's Arya. She's gonna go do it. I don't know. It seemed a little bit of a cop-out. It was a cool scene, don't get me wrong. But a bit of a cop-out. I'm curious to see what you think in the comments below. How'd you feel about this episode? I feel like it's going to divide the fan base. But we only got 3 episodes left, and I promise I'll change the set next week. I just wanted to get this out. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or TOMGROSSI Comedy at all the social media you see down below, and we'll be back for Game of Toms next week. But thank you so much for watching. I am Tom Grossi, and Tormund lived. All is well.